Greetings and welcome to Interesting Grenadians. Today we present the story of Brian Samuel. Born in Grenada, he migrated to England at age 7. As part of the Windrush generation, he experienced British racism firsthand. He moved to Jamaica, completed secondary school and university there, and has worked with prestigious organizations, including the World Bank. He has lived in 10 countries and is an avid dog lover, art collector, blogger, and biker. Brian, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Eugene.
Brian, I must say, it's the first time I've met anyone that I've interviewed who has asked me if they can bring their dog to the interview. Tell me about that.
Everybody who knows me knows there's two things about me. One is my bike, one is my hat, and the other one is my dog buddy. Because I always go everywhere with my dog in the car. In fact, the car is called the Dogmobile. But he couldn't behave himself properly this morning, so we didn't bring him.
So Brian, you've done a lot. You're one of those Grenadians who has been out there, been around, and now has returned home. Why don't we start with you telling us a little bit about, your family and your Grenadian roots?
Yeah, Brian Samuel. My family is from Pedmonton in St. David's, the best parish. My grandfather was a very interesting character. His name was Nathan Dennis Samuel, called by everybody ND Samuel. And he was what the British colonial authorities called a peasant proprietor. It's on my father's birth certificate. His father's profession is peasant proprietor, which I love. And he was an interesting character, and he lived up in Pedmonton. He started a small estate, growing, the usual nutmegs, cloves, cinnamon, cocoa, and so on. And my father went to England during the Second World War. He was 19 years old. He took a convoy from Grenada all the way up the islands, up to New York and across the Atlantic to England, where he nearly got torpedoed. And he worked in London, in Manchester during the war. He worked at Metrovic's factory, building the iconic Lancaster bombers. So he stayed on in England after the war, and he wanted to do law. He wanted to get a scholarship to do law, but the British government didn't want him to do law. They wanted him to become a teacher, because he was a metal worker, a technical craftsman, and so on. So for most of his life, he was a metalwork and technical drawing teacher. And he just traveled all over the world. And we went to England in 1960. By the time I moved to England, age 7, England was my fourth country. And we just continued moving to hither, thither, and beyond. And eventually we ended up in Jamaica when I was 18, went to university. And as I say, the rest is history.
So let me ask you, so in your younger years you lived in Grenada. Do you remember the time, even though it wasn't much, do you remember the time you spent in Grenada? Do you
Very well. I remember Trinidad and I remember Grenada. We lived in St. Augustine by the university in Trinidad. We had a wonderful life. Me and my two older brothers, who are actually called Tom and Jerry. So me, Tom and Jerry, we like any three little boys, had a great time growing up, running around the place. And then one day in 1959, our mother, who was a Scottish woman, because my father married a Scottish woman just after the war, went back to Grenada and in Trinidad, and one day she disappeared. And we never saw her again for many, many years, but that's another story. And so my father decided, it's time to go back to England. So we went to England in 1960.
So you heading back to England in 1960, certainly the Windrush period. What was that like for a 7-year-old?
I hated it. I mean, I remember thinking clearly, why are we in this place? Why are we in this country with these horrible people? Why are the kids in school calling me chocolate face? Which is, immediate fighting talk. I really did not like England. And for the first 3 or 4 years, it was a very difficult adjustment as a little boy. You get around, you do stuff like that, but, to come from a society like Grenada and Trinidad where you didn't know race. My friends was Brian Ferrero, the white kid next door, the other black kid this side. You never even thought about it. And then the first day you get to England, all of a sudden you're chocolate face and you're wog and nignog and so on. And it's like, I just couldn't understand it. I really couldn't understand it. It took a long time for us to get acclimatized to England.
And wog and nig-nog, these are derogatory terms for blacks in England at that time?
At that time. I mean, you had the TV program with Alf Garnett every week, talking about, wogs and nig-nogs in it and that and that and that. And it was all very funny to English people at the time. It wasn't funny to me, but it was funny at the time. And it wasn't until we came back from America, because again, my father, being the lifelong nomad that he was, we went to America in 1966. Just as I was beginning to get comfortable in England, father says, boys, we're going to America. So we went to Chicago for a year, where he taught in an exchange program in a small town in Chicago, just outside of Chicago in 66, 67. And this was another very interesting time in America, because this was just around the end of segregation, the beginning of black power, the beginning of the hippie movement, the Vietnam War. And I was 14 years old in the middle of all of this. And it was quite a fascinating time to be in America, and I was old enough to know what was going on. My father went and saw and experienced the race riots in Cicero, just outside Chicago, and wrote about all this stuff and so on. So it was a very interesting time. And then we went back to America, back to England, and all of a sudden England then didn't seem so bad. Kind of got used to myself. I was, doing O-levels, A-levels in England, but I wasn't really getting anywhere. I was an immigrant kid, typical careers day. So, Samuel, what do you want to be? Well, sir, I'd like to be a lawyer. Don't be stupid, boy. You can't be a lawyer. How about carpentry? You can be a carpenter, right? Tick. Next.
As an immigrant, son, that's the way you...
And that was it. You
didn't expect anything.
You're dumbed down. And my father just decided that, to take me, age 18, between lower sixth and upper sixth, from England to Jamaica, another new country. Why are we going to Jamaica now? So we went to Jamaica. I wasn't happy about going there, but within a year I fell in love with Jamaica. And in Jamaica turned me around, because teachers in school, for the first time in my life, said, you're not stupid. You're quite intelligent. You can be a lawyer. You can be anything you want to be. And all of a sudden I realized, wow, I'm not stupid. Because that's all that my English teachers told me. So it was a complete reversal. People say they send their children to America, in England, to advance. I went to Jamaica to advance.
I hear you. I hear you. We can advance right where we are.
Yeah.
Because quite an interesting journey, and certainly your dad loved roaming a bit, huh?
He was a roamer, and so am I, and so are all of us. I mean, I'm 68. I know I look a lot older, but I'm 68, and in 68 years, when I moved back to Grenada 2 years ago, that was the 22nd time I've moved country.
Wow, that's a lot. That's a lot.
I am the original Rolling Stone, but now I am gathering moss, and I'm not going anywhere else. I've done roaming.
So, Jamaica turned your life around, and you went to university there.
Yeah.
And what did you study?
Economics.
Economics, yeah. And take us to post-Jamaica. Well, before I even go there, let me ask you, what's your fondest memory of your time in Jamaica?
Oh, well, so many. I mean, Jamaica made me. It really did. It opened my eyes. I kind of grew up again when I went to Jamaica. And I remember growing up in England as a black kid and being called all these names. Second day in Jamaica, I'm walking on the street in Kingston, and a little scruffy little urchin boy says, "Hey, white boy, give me $1."
Calling you white boy?
And I'm looking around saying, which white boy are you looking for? He said, you. Me? I'm white? Yes, you're white. Well,
so opposite racism, huh?
Blow me away. But I had a great time in Jamaica. I mean, I lived in Jamaica altogether for about 14, 15 years. My wife is Jamaican. My children are Jamaican.
Okay.
And in the 70s, it was heady days. It was socialism. It was reggae. I rubbed shoulders every now and again with Bob Marley, and it was just a heady time. It was a lot of excitement, and a lot of things were happening. So Jamaica was but then on the other hand, you had the crime. And in the beginning of the 70s, it wasn't that bad. By the end of the 70s, it was terrible. It was civil war. And that's when I left and went back to England. got married, left, went to England again.
So take us to know your working career, because you've certainly done a lot there, including your time at the World Bank and that kind of thing. So take us to before up to that. Yeah.
Bit of a jack of all trades. I studied economics just because my father wanted me to do law. So I'm like, no, law, I'm doing economics. And then I worked with the government of Jamaica. I worked in public utilities management. Then I worked in shipping. My first real career was in shipping. I went to Norway. I did a 1-year course in shipping management in Norway. Got a job with a shipping company in Jamaica. Did my time at sea every now and again. And I then moved to England after Jamaica kind of disintegrated in the early 80s. My wife and I moved to London. I worked with a shipping consulting firm. And typical Windrush, I had a British passport. When I was 17 or 18, I got a UK passport like any other kid. It's a 10-year passport. When I was 28, I go to renew my passport. They tell me, sorry, you're not British anymore. Grenadian. You're now Grenadian because Grenada then became independent. I'm like, wait, you telling me I had a British passport for 10 years and now I'm not British anymore? Yeah, but all you have to do is stay 5 years. Stay 5 years in England and you can apply for your British citizenship and you get it. I stayed 4.5 years. And one February morning I got a call from Jamaica from my old boss. Brian, I have a job for you in Jamaica. You want to come? Yes. So said, so done. I left and I never got the passport, and guess what? I don't mind at all. So I worked in Jamaica, I worked in shipping, then I worked in agriculture, then I worked in fish farming, and then I joined the World Bank, which was what they kind of wanted, because they wanted a generalist who'd kind of been around the block a bit. So I worked for the World Bank. I started on a 2-year contract and left 20 years later. I took a retirement package on my 20th anniversary and said, that's it. But I loved my time at the World Bank. It was very exciting, it was intellectually stimulating, and we did some great projects. I mean, I lived in, I was posted to Barbados, Washington, to Zimbabwe, and then South Africa. And I did some, I would like to say some good things. And one of my favorite projects was right here in Grenada. I don't think he would mind me saying this, but Leon Taylor, the original owner and developer of La Source, my good friend, I was extremely instrumental in arranging the financing for the first opening of La Source before it went to Sandals. Leon and I then became good friends, and I did a couple of other hotel projects in the Caribbean, and then we moved to Zimbabwe.
So at the World Bank, you were responsible for things like project financing.
Yeah.
And what else?
I was doing lending operations to Caribbean businesses, and then when I moved to Africa, I then moved to PPPs, which is the latest buzzword, privatizations and public-private partnerships.
I see.
So taking loss-making government entities and putting them into private hands. So I did that for about 15 years with the World Bank, and that's what I'm still doing now. I'm still consulting part-time.
What was your biggest success in that area, the PPPs?
My favorite project was in Kruger National Park in South Africa, which is a national park, and we did some private sector game parks, game lodges, very high-end. But that was a very interesting project, because in South Africa you had the three mixtures of environmental sustainability, economic sustainability, and B, black economic empowerment in South Africa. So we mixed all of these three into a very good project, and that was 20 years ago, and all the lodges that we tendered out are still operational. They're very profitable, and it's been a success story.
You may have said it already, but how many different African countries did you live or work in?
I lived in 2. I lived in Zimbabwe for 5 years and South Africa for 5 years. How many countries in Africa? Probably 20 or so.
What, that you visited?
Yeah, because I on work, on business.
I see.
I went to, East Africa, all over.
But that leads me to my next question. What is your favorite African country?
It's not South Africa. Everybody talks about South Africa, but South Africa to me is a toxic society. It is still recovering from apartheid. There's still a lot of anger. Black people are angry, white people are angry, and they don't like that. You know, they talk about the connection, you know, it's the motherland and so on. Well, I never really felt that connection, certainly not in the food, certainly not in the culture of Southern Africa or Eastern Africa. And then I went to Ghana.
West Africa.
Yeah, West Africa. And all of a sudden, I'm home. I literally felt it through my pores. The food, the language, the body language, the way people talk, the way people act, and especially the food. I can see that's where we came from. Rice and peas, fried plantain, which they call kwele wele. Ghana has it. Yeah. I see the connection.
Yeah. I could attest to that. One of my best buddies from my time, you know, at school in the States, is from Ghana, and he visited me here in Grenada a couple of times. He said the exact same thing. He said from the time he landed in Grenada, he felt he was in Ghana. Yeah, he felt at home. The people and everything else. Yeah. So I
similarly with Nigeria, but even more so Ghana. That's the Gold Coast. That's where we came from.
Right. Exactly. So, Brian, you are. Apart from all those things, you're a biker.
Yeah.
You're an art collector.
Yeah.
Right? Well, we said you're a dog lover already.
Yeah.
What are some of your other passions?
My family. I have 5 beautiful children, one granddaughter who's 11 years old, and another granddaughter almost ready to come. So 2 granddaughters, and that's my number one passion, and my wife Marion, and my brothers and so on. So that extended family, you know, keeps me grounded, and that is a real passion. And of course, another passion I have is right here, Grenada. You know, when I left the World Bank in 2008, everybody said, why are you leaving? You know, you've been here 20 years. You could be a director. And I said, that's why I'm leaving. Because I've had enough. I don't want to be a director. I want to go home. I came back here in 2007 to renew my passport. And in 2008, I came back for good. Because I just felt, you know, life is more important than money. You can't buy this. And I'm passionate about what Grenada is. I do think that we're in danger of losing sight of what makes Grenada unique.
You're a biker.
Yeah.
So you've always been a biker?
Yeah.
What do you like about riding?
Well,
freedom?
Those are kind of corny things. I like the feeling of riding. It kind of keeps me young at heart, kind of. I've been riding since I was, 19, 20, and Tom and Jerry have also been riding. So both my brothers and I, we're all bikers, and we love to go on long bike trips together. So when I go to England, we'll go on a trip, and when they come here, it's just, if it's not raining, I'll ride my bike.
Gotcha.
It's just better.
And you are about to write a book. You also write and blog and all those things. And I hear you have a book in the making.
So, as you say, I'm a scribbler, as I call it. My brother Tom, bless his late soul, used to always call me the king of turgid prose.
What's that?
Turgid prose, Oh,
prose. Okay, yeah. Right.
So I write a lot. I write for my job. I write, reports and so on, but I also like to write personally. And for the last few years, I've been, thinking about my father and the job that he did and the difficulties and the challenges that he overcame in bringing us up. And it's a counter narrative because, when you're talking about West Indian men and fathers, the black man is the man who goes away. He's the deadbeat dad. And it is the woman who raises the children, who does everything. Well, in my family, it was exactly the opposite. Our mother did a disappearing act. When I was 7 and my brothers were 9 and 10, she just walked out. We never saw her again. And my father took it on himself. Took us all over the world, raised us up. Had his faults like any other man, but I love the memory of my father. So I've written a book which is called The White Knight Box. And it's called The White Knight Box because in England in the 60s there was a laundry company called the White Knight Laundry Service. And my father used to send his shirts to come back, and they'd come back in this big box. Well, he liberated one of those boxes at some point, and he kept all his documents and personal memorabilia in there. So long after he died, I carried this box with me all over the world, Africa, Norway, everywhere, and I never really looked into it because I was kind of afraid. And about 8-10 years ago, I decided, let me, dig into this thing. And I was just fascinated at what I found, and I found so much stuff about ourselves, school reports and all these photographs, and discovered amazing things about my father which I never knew. So I started to write the book, and the book is the counter narrative.
Right.
It's the black man who raises his children on his own.
Right.
And he did all that, and he died very sadly and very tragically in 1975, age 53, in Jamaica. If you had asked me that morning, who's the fittest 53-year-old man you know, I said, my father. He used to play cricket, he used to do the shot put, he used to do the javelin, and he played golf. And then in 10 minutes, he had a heart attack and died in my arms. And his last words to me were, I'm dying, goodbye, I love you. Anyway. And I've carried that with me for many, many years, decades, and I decided, you know what? Let me just homage. Let me do an homage. Let me do an homage. So I did that, and it's going to be published this year, come hell or high water. I have the University of the West Indies Press, who has virtually agreed to publish it. So I'm just finishing it off now, getting the different family members to give their approval, and it will be in the bookstores this year.
Wow. I wish you a lot of success with that.
Thank you very much.
And before we wrap, I understand that you building a home now in Grenada.
Yes.
And could you just spell the name? Don't say what you're going to call it. Just spell it first for me.
I will spell the name of the house, which is currently being built. It's a Brian Bullen design, and the house is called Kumusha.
And what's that stand for?
Kumusha.
Kumusha.
That is Shona. That is the Shona people from Zimbabwe, and that's the common language spoken in Zimbabwe. And Kumusha means home. Home.
Well, welcome home, Brian.
Thank you very much.
It's good to have you here.
Thank you, sir.
Take care. We're gonna.
Oh yeah, we'll do that. Thank you.
Well, thank you for watching this edition of Interesting Grenadians. Please join us again next Wednesday as we continue this series. Thank you.
For a season of Grooving Smooth and Live on GBN. Grooving Smooth and Live is a 1-hour performance gig every Thursday from 8 p.m. featuring performances from our local musicians and short interviews discussing all things musical. Every Thursday, a different musician and a different instrument will be featured, from the violin to the saxophone to the trumpet, guitar, and steel pan. Our local musicians playing, improvising, and educating us on all genres of music. Join GBN with host musicians Matthias and Shireen, and a special guest every Thursday at 8 p.m. It's Grooving Smooth and Live on GBN.
If there was ever a time to keep and stay healthy, it's now! We at Hills and Valley are here to help you take deliberate steps to maintain your health. We stayed true to maintaining the most comprehensive rates while stocking the widest range of medicines and health devices, including personal protective equipment. There are so many benefits shopping with us. You get great savings through discounts for senior citizens and reward cards for loyal customers. Ask about owning yours today. Visit us at Halifax and Grenville Street, St. George, Jubilee Street opposite the Grenville Bus Terminal, and at Hillsborough, Carriacou. Our wholesale distribution on Halifax Street also stocks the widest range of pharmaceuticals. We are with you on the hills and in the valleys. We are Hills and Valley Pharmacy.
Level of convenience and comfort awaits you when you shop at Rise and Shine Supermarket and Hardware Supplies, Griffin Lane, Grenville. Convenient, because we are open Sunday to Sunday. We're even at your service on public holidays. Comfort, because we are easily accessible to the physically challenged. Free Wi-Fi is available while you shop, and bags come at no charge. Everyday low prices and excellent customer care. Adequate parking available. We supply everything you can possibly think of. Family and home supplies, fresh meat, vegetables, and personal care products. All brands of cooking gas at affordable prices. You can send in your order, have it pulled, or pick up express.
Fresh from the home series win against England, West Indies now turn their attention to the might of India on the subcontinent. The squad boasts the likes of the talented Brandon King, Fabian Allen, Jason Holder, Kieran Pollard, and Nicholas Pooran. It's the West Indies tour of India. It's Kieran Pollard versus Virat Kohli, live on Classic 105.5 and 105.9. This series is made possible by Caribbean Alliance Insurance, Shoes R Us, Jediah's Pharmacy, George of Huggins, Agents for Fruta, Qualitech Medical Laboratory, Viking Engineering, Gravel, Concrete and Emulsion Production Corporation, and Grenada Planned Parenthood Association. Tune into the post-match conversation daily and name the top scoring batsman for Team West Indies and win yourself a drink hamper. Compliments Fruta. It's cricket. Love the cricket on K105. With you anywhere and everywhere.
Dennis Thomas, also known as Tomo of Black Bay St. John, passed away on Monday 14th February at the age of 74. The funeral for the late Dennis Thomas of Black Bay St. John will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Arrangements entrusted to Lacroix Brothers Funeral Home. Catherine John of Montreux St. Patrick passed away on Saturday 12th February at the age of 80. The funeral for the late Catherine John of Montreux St. Patrick will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Arrangements entrusted to Lacroix Brothers Funeral Home. Agnes Angela Smith, also known as Jella of Brothers St. John, who resided in New Hampshire St. George, passed away on Saturday 12th February at the age of 66. The funeral for the late Agnes Angela Smith of Brothers St. John, who resided at New Hampshire St. George, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Arrangements entrusted to Lacroix Brothers Funeral Home. Mary Ann Francis of Windsor Forest St. David passed away on Monday 7th February at the age of 72. The funeral service for the late Mary Ann Francis of Windsor Forest St. David will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Arrangements entrusted to Lacroix Brothers